Some families in these mountains have told the same story for 200 years. We don't rightly know where our people came from, but Grandma always said there was Cherokee blood. It gets repeated at every reunion, passed down like a family Bible, and then someone finally spits in a tube, mails it off, and waits. The results come back. No native ancestry at all. Instead, the map lights up over the Scottish borders, the north of Ireland, the German Palatinate. The story was wrong, but here is the part that should make you sit up. The real story was never hidden. It was sitting in plain sight the entire time, printed on every envelope, carved on every headstone in the family plot. It was the last name. Today we are counting down 15 Appalachian surnames with documented history behind them, names that trace back to border raiders, persecuted refugees, and hidden bloodlines. A surname alone is not proof of anything. But if yours is on this list, your true clan may not be the one you were told. Count how many you recognize. We start with a name, about as American as a name can get. Hoover. Say it, and most people think of a president, a vacuum cleaner, a dam on the Colorado River. What almost nobody thinks of is a small farm in the German Palatinate. Hoover is an anglicized spelling of the German Huber, a name that meant the man who held a hube, a measured plot of farmland large enough to support a family. In the German-speaking villages of the Rhineland, a Huber was not a peasant scraping by. He was a settled farmer with land to his name, a man of standing in the parish. When those families poured into Pennsylvania in the 1700s and drifted south down the Great Wagon Road into the Appalachian valleys, English-speaking clerks heard Huber and wrote down what their ears told them. Hoover. The umlaut vanished. The German vowel flattened into something a Virginia tax collector could spell. Within a generation or two, the family that once farmed a hube in the Palatinate had become indistinguishable from their Scots-Irish neighbors. If your people are Hoovers, and they came through Pennsylvania before the Revolution, the odds are good that the name crossed an ocean in German, not English. Your clan tilled German soil long before it ever saw a Carolina ridge. Number 14. Carpenter. Here is a name that hides its origins more completely than almost any other on this list because it doesn't sound foreign. It sounds like a job, and that is exactly the trick. A great many Appalachian carpenters were never English at all. They were Zimmermanns. Zimmermann is the German word for a worker in wood, a carpenter. And when those families arrived in colonial Pennsylvania, their name did not get misspelled. It got translated. When William Penn issued land patents to German-speaking settlers, he made a habit of rendering their names into English wherever he could find a match. Zimmermann had a perfect English twin waiting for it, and so, on the deed, in the clerk's careful hand, the family became Carpenter. The German vanished in a single stroke of the pen. No accent betrayed it, no awkward spelling gave it away. A name that had marked a family of woodworkers along the Rhine for centuries simply put on English clothes and walked into the American record looking native-born. If your carpenter ancestors came south out of Pennsylvania into the mountains, look one generation back across the water. The name may have been Zimmermann, and your clan may be German to the bone. Number 13. Kennedy. Most people hear Kennedy and think of Boston, of Irish pride, of a family that became American royalty. The Irish part is right. What the family pride tends to leave out is what the name actually means. Kennedy comes from the Gaelic O Sineaid, and the scholars are blunt about its translation. It means ugly head or helmeted head, depending on which route you follow and how kind you want to be about it. It began as a nickname, the kind of unsparing description that Gaelic naming handed out freely, and it attached itself to a powerful family in County Tipperary, kin to Brian Boru himself, the High King who broke the Vikings at Clontarf. From Ireland, the name traveled the same road so many did, through Ulster and across the Atlantic, and it settled deep into the southern mountains, alongside the Scots-Irish flood. So, an Appalachian Kennedy is not carrying a soft or sentimental name. He is carrying a 1,000-year-old battlefield insult that became a badge of one of Ireland's oldest royal lines. If your family is Kennedy, the name in your mouth once described a head that went into war wearing a helmet, and the clan behind it once stood beside a king. Number 12. Bowman. Bowman looks like one of the most English names imaginable. It conjures a long bowman at Agincourt, an archer in Lincoln Green, a soldier from the pages of English history. And for some families, that is exactly the story. But for a surprising number of Appalachian Bowmans, the truth runs through Germany, not England. The German name was Baumann, and depending on the region, it meant a farmer, a man of the land, or a builder, a man who raised houses and barns. When Baumann families came down the wagon road into the Shenandoah Valley and the mountains beyond, English ears reshaped the sound. The double vowel of Baumann slid easily into Bowman, and the meaning quietly changed underneath it. A name that had meant farmer in a Rhineland dialect now read as archer in English, and nobody bothered to correct the record. This is the kind of name that fools the family itself. There is no strange spelling to raise a question, no accent left to explain. A bowman might spend his whole life assuming a line of English archers behind him, when the real ancestors were German farmers who came for cheap land and religious peace. If your Baumans came through Pennsylvania or the Valley of Virginia, it is worth asking whether the name was ever Baumann. Number 11. Campbell. Campbell is one of the great surnames of the Appalachian South, scattered across every holler and county from Pennsylvania to Georgia, and it belongs to one of the largest and most powerful clans Scotland ever produced. It is also, when you translate it, something of an insult. Campbell comes from the Gaelic Campbell, and Campbell means crooked mouth. Whether that pointed to a physical feature on some long-dead ancestor or to a reputation for crooked speech, the scholars cannot fully say, but the meaning is not flattering and the clan wore it anyway. All the way to becoming one of the dominant forces in the Scottish Highlands. The Campbells were masters of the long game, expanding their lands and influence across Argyll until rival clans both feared and resented them. From Scotland, many Campbell families moved into Ulster during the plantation, and from Ulster, they joined the Great Scots-Irish migration into the American backcountry. They settled the ridges and valleys of Appalachia in such numbers that the name became a fixture of mountain life. If your family is Campbell, the name in your bones is Highland Scottish, sharpened in clan warfare, and carried through Ireland to these mountains. Crooked mouth or not, it is one of the proudest clan names you could carry. Number 10. Bell. Here is where the list starts reaching into names so plain you would never give them a second look. Bell. It sounds like the thing in a church tower, the simplest word in the language. But on the Anglo-Scottish border, Bell was something else entirely. It was the name of one of the riding clans, one of the 13 families so notorious for raiding, robbery, and bloodshed that they were known across the borderlands as the Devil's Dozen. The Bells rode with the Armstrongs and the Grahams through the lawless frontier between England and Scotland, a country where no king's law truly reached, and a man's only protection was his surname and the kinsman who would ride to avenge him. They lifted cattle, burned farms, and feuded for generations. When the Crown finally crushed the border reivers in the early 1600s, families like the Bells scattered, many of them funneled into Ulster, and then onward to America, where they carried their hard frontier instincts straight into the Appalachian Mountains. It is a fitting inheritance. If your name is Bell, and your people came through the southern mountains, that quiet little word may be the surname of horse-riding raiders who terrorized a border for 300 years. Number 9. Nixon. Most Americans hear Nixon and think of exactly one man and one scandal, but long before the name reached the White House, it belonged to the wildest frontier in Britain. Nixon was a border-riding surname, one of the riding clans of the Anglo-Scottish marches, named over and over in the records of raids and feuds, alongside the Armstrongs, the Elliots, and the Grahams. To be a Nixon in the 1500s was to belong to a kin network built for survival in a place where law had collapsed. The Reivers organized themselves, not by nation, but by name. And loyalty to that name was absolute because betraying it could get you killed. They rode by moonlight, drove off their neighbors' cattle, and lived by a rough code that owed nothing to England or Scotland. When the Union of the Crowns brought the hammer down on the borders, the raving families were broken up, hanged, exiled, or pushed across to Ulster. And from there, many followed the migration into the American backcountry. If your family is Nixon and traces back through the southern mountains, you may descend from one of those riding clans, a people who answered to no crown and only ever truly trusted their own name. Number 8. Bunch. Now, the list turns towards something stranger and more haunting than border raiders. Bunch is one of the core surnames of the Melungeons, a mixed ancestry people who settled the most isolated ridges of Appalachia long before official records caught up with them. For generations, the Melungeons were a riddle. They had olive skin and European features. They lived in tight communities on places like Newman's Ridge in Hancock County, Tennessee, and nobody, including them, could fully explain where they had come from. In a world that sorted everyone into white or black, the Melungeons fit neither box, and the name itself became a slur thrown at families thought to be of mixed blood. They guarded their origins, sometimes claiming Portuguese descent to explain their coloring and hold on to their freedom. Then DNA testing arrived, and the riddle began to dissolve. The genetic evidence points to a tri-racial mix, European, African, and some native ancestry, woven together on the colonial frontier. A name like Bunch, clustered in the right Appalachian counties, is one of the threads that leads back into that hidden story. Before I show you the last part, if you've ever looked at your own results and wondered where Appalachian bloodlines fit into your ancestry, I put it all together in a guide called Where Do You Really Come From? Link is in the description. But stay right here, because what comes next is the part most people completely miss. Number 7. Goins. The Goins name carries one of the most documented and most revealing stories in all of Melungeon history, because researchers have actually traced it back to its source. The genealogical and DNA evidence indicates that the Goins family, spelled Goins, Going, or Gowan, across the records, descends from a man named John Gowan, also written Grawir, one of the first Africans recorded in colonial Virginia in the 1600s. From that root, the family spread, intermarried, moved into the Appalachian frontier, and over generations the origins blurred into the catch-all mystery of the Melungeons. The name shows up again and again in the old documents, in tax lists, in the illegal voting trials where Melungeon men were challenged over their race and their rights. When the modern DNA studies were run on the core Melungeon lines, the African paternal ancestry that the paper trail had hinted at was confirmed in the genetics. The story the families had buried, or had been forced to bury under claims of Portuguese or Indian blood, turned out to be written in their chromosomes all along. If your name is Goins, and your people came out of the Tennessee and Virginia mountains, the name may lead straight back to one of the very first Africans in America. Number 6. Mullins. Mullins is one of the 5 core surnames of the Melungeon world, and it comes attached to one of the most unforgettable figures the Appalachian frontier ever produced. Her name was Mahala Mullins, and she lived on Newman's Ridge in the 1800s, a moonshiner of legendary scale and, by every account, legendary size. The stories say she grew so large that when lawmen finally came up the mountain to arrest her for selling liquor, they could not get her through the cabin door, and went back down, empty-handed, with the line that she was catchable but not fetchable. Behind the folklore sits a real and well-documented Melungeon family, planted deep in the most isolated country of Hancock County, Tennessee. The Mullins name clusters there in the old censuses and church rolls alongside Collins and Gibson, the bedrock families of the community. Like the others, the Mullins line carries the triracial ancestry that DNA testing has now brought into the open, the European, African, and native threads braided together on the frontier. If your family is Mullins, and the trail runs back to those Tennessee ridges, you may belong to one of the oldest and most storied Melungeon clans there is. Number 5. Gibson. Along with Collins, Gibson stands as one of the two bedrock surnames of the entire Melungeon people. If Collins is the Irish-rooted anchor of the community, Gibson is the English-named one, and together those two families form the documented core from which so much of the Melungeon world descends. The founders of the settlements on Newman's Ridge and in the Vardy Valley of Hancock County, Tennessee. The Gibson name comes with its own piece of mountain legend in the figure remembered as Spanish Peg, a Gibson woman whose nickname hints at the Iberian origins so many Melungeon families once claimed to explain their dark coloring and to defend their standing as free people. For a long time, those claims of Portuguese or Spanish blood were treated as pure invention, a convenient cover story. But the picture turned out to be more tangled than anyone expected, and the DNA work on the core families has confirmed the deep mix of European, African, and native ancestry running through these lines. Gibson sits right at the heart of it. If your name is Gibson and your roots run into those Tennessee mountains, you may carry the blood of the founding Melungeon families themselves. Number 4. Kerr. We are back to the border now, and to one of its most distinctive riding clans. Kerr was one of the great reaving surnames of the Anglo-Scottish frontier, a family powerful enough to hold the wardenship of the Middle March and feared enough to ride in the same breath as the Armstrongs and the Maxwells. The Kerrs came with a legend stitched right into their bodies. They were said to be a clan of left-handed men, and the story goes that they built the staircases of their towers to spiral the wrong way, counterclockwise, so that a left-handed Kerr defending the steps could swing his sword freely while a right-handed attacker was cramped against the wall. Whether every Kerr was truly left-handed or not, the reputation stuck so hard that in parts of the borders, a left-handed person is still called Kerr-handed. These were frontier fighters, masters of the raid and the feud. And when the raving world was finally broken, Kerr families took the well-worn road through Ulster and into the American mountains. If your name is Kerr, spelled Kerr or Carr, and your people came down through Appalachia, your clan may have guarded a border with a sword in its left hand. Number 3. Maxwell. Maxwell was one of the most powerful surnames on the entire western border, a clan that didn't merely raid the frontier, but in many ways ruled it. The Maxwells repeatedly held the office of Warden of the West March, the Crown's own officer charged with keeping order, which gave them the rare distinction of being both the law and the lawbreakers, enforcing the peace one season and lifting their neighbors' cattle the next. There is a moment that captures the border spirit perfectly, when a Maxwell-led force swept into the debatable land and drove off 700 head of cattle, and a complaint was lodged with the English warden. The Maxwell hidesman reportedly answered that the cattle had been taken orderly, according to the customs of the borders. Theft, in other words, was simply how things were done, and everyone understood the rules. That was the world the Maxwells dominated, a place where a great name meant armed men, fortified towers, and the power to make your own justice. When the borders were pacified and broken, Maxwell families joined the exodus through Ulster to America. If your name is Maxwell and the trail leads back through the southern mountains, your clan once stood among the masters of the Scottish frontier. Number 2. Graham. The Grahams were one of the most notorious of all the border clans, and their story carries a weight the others do not, because the Grahams were not merely defeated, they were deliberately erased. Along with the Armstrongs, the Grahams broke the old custom and settled the debatable land itself, that lawless strip between the kingdoms that neither crown could govern. And from there, they raided and feuded and grew powerful enough that the authorities marked them for special treatment. When King James united the crowns and set out to pacify the borders, the Grahams were singled out above almost all others. Their lands were seized, their men were rounded up. Whole families were forcibly transported out of the country, shipped to Ireland and beyond, and there were even efforts to forbid them from using the name Graham at all, to make the surname disappear from the border forever. It did not work. The name survived every attempt to stamp it out, traveled through Ulster, and crossed into the American backcountry, where it took root in the Appalachian Mountains. If your family is Graham, your clan was once so feared that a king tried to abolish your very name. The crown failed. You are the proof. And here is number one. The name nobody sees coming. Armstrong. It sounds like a boast, a strong arm, a name fit for the first man to walk on the moon. And that is fitting, because Neil Armstrong's own line traces back to this very border stock. But the deeper truth is darker and far older. The Armstrongs were the single most feared reaving clan on the entire Anglo-Scottish frontier, the principal family of the Devil's Dozen, masters of Liddesdale, a valley so soaked in violence it was called the bloodiest in Britain. At their height, the Armstrongs could put thousands of riders in the saddle and answered to no king at all. The most famous of them, Johnny Armstrong, rode out in his finery to meet the young King James V, expecting an audience between near equals. The king took one look at a subject grander than himself and ordered Johnny and his men hanged on the spot. That was the price of the Armstrong name. When the borders were finally crushed, the Armstrongs were scattered, hanged, and exiled. Many funneled through Ulster and into the American mountains, where the name became woven into Appalachia itself. If you are an Armstrong, your clan once ruled the most lawless ground in Britain by the sword. So how many did you count? One name on its own means little. But a name from this list, combined with the other signs, a DNA test that points to the Scottish borders, or Ulster, or the German Palatinate, family stories that never quite added up, a grandmother's tale that the records cannot confirm. That is when a name becomes a doorway. The crown broke the border clans. It hanged the ravers, transported whole families, and tried to erase their very names. The plantations scattered Ulster across an ocean. The mountains swallowed German farmers and a hidden mixed-blood people whole. And yet the names survived all of it, waiting in census rolls and on headstones for someone to finally ask the real question. The clan you are told about may not be the clan you came from. If you found these stories fascinating, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments, is your name on this list? Your ancestors carried these names across an ocean. You only have to look at one to remember them.